Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Groves. I'm joined by my co-hosts, David Wyatt-Hupton and Matthew Merrett. Guys, how are we doing today?
I am ecstatic. Today, we're recording on a Thursday. It is exactly 3 weeks till the draft gets underway. We are creeping ever closer, and it is the crunch time. I'm also in desperate need of a bit of distraction at the moment after Chelsea absolutely bottled to Brentford and Real Madrid consecutively. So I'm looking forward to breaking down some Jets talk with you guys.
It wouldn't be the Jets podcast kicking off if Matt wasn't lamenting something that happened to Chelsea. So that's tradition. David, how are you?
All good. Like Matt said, 3 weeks out. It's been a long wait, it seems. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what the roster is going to look like next year. And opening day for all baseball fans as well today. We're recording on Thursday, so happy opening day to baseball fans. I know Matt's not interested, but exciting times. More sport. Who doesn't like it? I love it.
Exactly, more sport. And we're only, like I said, a few weeks away from the draft now. Finally get to add those final pieces to the roster, or the final major pieces to the roster. And very exciting times. It's been a long road, and we're almost there now, guys. So today's segment, we're gonna have a little bit of news. Later on, we're going to have a little fun segment where we draft players in each position. So I've listed up a bunch of players in each group for the fourth pick, 10th pick, going all the way down to the first fourth round pick at 111, and we'll be choosing one each and doing it in a snake draft matter. And we'll see the 6 players that each of us have got and kind of compare them and see kind of how it works out with the players. So that should be a fun segment. But before that, we'll get into a little bit of news. Okay, so for the news this week, a little bit of a slow news week. There's a few little items to discuss. The first one was is Woody Johnson and his wife Suzanne, who is of Ukrainian heritage. They donated $1 million to the Ukrainian relief effort. David, what's your thoughts on this generally?
Yeah, I mean, we don't like to be too political on here, but I think it's a good thing. Woody Johnson actually does do a lot. I tweeted about it, and someone came back saying, well, "Why don't you just spend it on New Jersey schools?" And I was kind of like, well, I think you're missing the point a little bit in terms of Woody Johnson's wife and how much they actually do for the local community. Because they do tons. They do give a lot of money. They are quite generous. They've got money. It's not like they're short of a penny, are they? So, the fact they're donating, it's $1 million, $100,000 a month to different charities just to help with the relief fund. So, I like my teams doing this kind of thing. It's not the be all and end all. I follow sports to win, but if we can win and be a little bit humanitarian at the same time, then great.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd just echo it. Obviously, we all feel terrible about what's going on in Ukraine. So the more that people in positions of privilege can do, and if we're really lucky, it'll pay off into some good karma for the season. So let's see how it goes.
I don't think that's how karma works, but I think a bit of hard work behind the scenes will get it done, and maybe we can save a blown Achilles in training camp. Maybe that's the kind of the equation that we can work it out. We need something to help us out with that injury luck. So anything that can help. The other little bit of news is a bit of a significant release, more symbolic one, as you said, Matt, before the recording. Ryan Griffin tying in finally got released, releasing about $3 million, in the cap space for us. Matt, like you said, symbolic release, not moving the needle too much, but I think he was kind of that kind of figure that really epitomized the offensive or the lack of offensive output in the last few years.
Yeah, well, he was a beautiful representation of both McCagnon and Gase in the fact that he had one good okay year where he flashed a bit and McCagnon immediately decided to extend him and give him a big old contract. Then he kind of became representative of all of the Jets' offensive struggles over the last couple of years and really held down that tight end position, and the ceiling was so low whenever he was out there. It's slightly one of those ones which feels almost poignant when he leaves, because he is so representative of just a bad couple of Jets years, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. I think he's someone who always gave his all for the team though, and he never stopped fighting. So it's part of the business, part of being a top level franchises that you want the best people in the right positions, and it frees up some cap space. It was the right move to do, and we'll see where Ryan Griffin goes next.
David, we're finally transitioning into having the strength in that, or a lot more quality and strength in that room. Obviously, we're looking at the draft maybe as a potential option to add another one later on in the draft. The feeling is that we've just moved on. How are you feeling about everything in the Titan room now with that, like I said, that symbolic moving on from Ryan Griffin?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have talent in there for a star, like actual real talent. I mean, I think I echo what Matt said. I mean, Ryan Griffin doesn't seem like a bad dude. Like, he gave everything he could. He wasn't like he went out there to underperform. He just got rewarded with a contract that his play historically, not just over 1 year, but historically over his career, he probably didn't deserve. And that's the symbolic side of kind of Maccagnan and what he was doing, was he was giving out bad contracts to mediocre players. And just to have that gone, and have CJ in the building, have Tyler in the building, come up on a draft class that's deep all the way down to the 5th, 6th round in terms of tight end quality. I'm still hopeful that we'll add to that room. I'm not forgetting about Kenny Yeboah, because I do think he has talent. We'll see if he actually gets an opportunity this year, or if he might end up on the practice squad again, or he might have to move elsewhere to get his opportunity, considering the depth of the room. But if we can just bring in a 5th round kind of guy just to kind of round out that room, I think it'll be a strength for the team. And it's been a noticeable kind of focus for the Jets to improve that team. And Ryan Griffin was always getting released. I mean, I'm quite surprised it took the Jets this long to release him, just to give him an opportunity to catch on somewhere else. But GVR's still around, so we're not quite through it yet.
Yeah, that's the big one. I'll definitely be going to you first on when we get when he gets released.
He's doing fighting talk on Twitter. GVR's got a bit of fight to him on Twitter this week.
It's interesting.
Found his voice.
I can't believe you forgot to give a shout out to Big Lawrence Cager as well in the tight end room.
Oh yeah,
wide receiver tight end.
that transition, yeah. I probably leave it. That's an experiment, a bit like Pinnock going to safety. So we'll see how those things work out. In terms of the other bit of news, it's that part of the year. In a normal year, obviously we've had a few topsy-turvy years when it comes to the draft process, but in a normal year you start to get those draft prospects through the door in your building and get to meet them in more depth. David, you've been all over this for your work at the Jets Way with your newsletter. So kind of what's the general vibe of the people they're bringing in? Is it kind of some people said it's maybe like more juniors or kind of people who weren't at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, the majority are juniors that they probably haven't been able to spend too much time with, and the vast majority that have been confirmed are first round talents. The only one, and it's quite an interesting one, I don't really understand it, is Tayser Mack, who's the wide receiver from Pitt. He's kind of the only prospect who's, most mock drafts don't even have him getting drafted. He's a 6th to undrafted free agent type prospect. And he's coming for a visit. So that's an interesting one. I'm not sure why. He wasn't overly productive. He didn't have any stats that stood out when I looked at him. I mean, I haven't looked at him actually play because it wasn't a name that was on my radar. So it's kind of a new one for me. But just looking at his stats, they're not great. So, interesting one to watch. I'm not sure why that one is there. But one thing I'll say is kind of, I think I shared with you guys last year. I spoke to a few prospects last year, and the Jets, I don't know if other teams do this, but the Jets actually physically ask the prospects to not share that they're coming in for a visit. I'm not sure why, but there was 2 completely different prospects last year that I spoke to and asked, have you been to visit the Jets? And they said, we were asked not to share that information that we have visited. So, it's top secret stuff in terms of the Jets. I don't know how much to read into it. Some prospects, historically, they've not had him for a visit and have drafted. And some prospects they've met multiple times and drafted. So trying to find some alignment between kind of the pre-draft meetings and the actual end result of if they get drafted or not is near impossible. So I haven't actually tried.
That's the point, right? I mean, that's what that's what Joe Douglas and his team want it to be, where no one can read their hand in terms of which way they're leaning. Especially, they probably dealt their hand in terms of where they know they're probably in control of what they can choose at 4 and 10. So they probably don't mind. They're pretty happy with their options. They're not going to get sniped for like one prospect that they're hoping drops to them. But maybe for the rest of the draft, they're not allowing what's that information that's out there, who they might be interested in. So yeah,
I mean, they've certainly met with Kayvon 3 times. That's what they've met Kayvon 3 times. They've met Sauce Gardner twice, and they've met Traylon Burks twice. And they're the only people they've met for multiple meetings that they've also brought in for a private workout. So those 3 names, read into that what you want. I'll read into it what I want to read into it because I really like Kayvon. So I'm hoping that if he does somehow fall to 4, he doesn't make it past 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I enjoy just doing it just for pure interest of seeing who they're bringing in comparison to other teams. I mean, if you look at some other teams, I think like the Vikings, they've already confirmed like 26 of their visits or something like that. Whereas we've confirmed 11. So we've still got, we've confirmed 12 with Taser Max. So we've got 18 left. So, we probably won't find out who all those 18 people are, but we'll try and uncover a few more.
Matt, any thoughts on the prospects that you've seen that have been confirmed to come through the door?
I think it's interesting because obviously you only have 30 prospects, so there's always a balance between wanting to meet those kind of first rounder guys who you're only ever going to be able to take 2 of out of 30 meets, or kind of trying to spread it out in the balance and across the rounds. And what the Jets are doing, particularly with that top portion of prospects, is it's kind of the telegraphed story that we've heard all off season, with the kind of after missing out on Chandler Jones, the attempted runs at Calvin Ridley, pushing the tyres on Amari Cooper, making a run at Tyreek Hill. It is becoming very, very clear that the Jets are kind of heading into this draft with an understanding that they need to add premier talent at defensive end and wide receiver. And I think it's probably becoming more and more obvious that that's what they want to do at 4 and 10. Whether it will transpire, we'll see. Because obviously the more obvious you make it, the more open you leave yourselves to someone kind of jumping in front of you and taking that position. So it's good that they're meeting all of these prospects. Give yourself flexibility. I think they've met with all 4 of the defensive ends, from Walker, Johnson, Thibodeau and Hutchinson. And then they've had the wide receivers in Jameson Williams, Olave, Burks, London, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
So they've met all of these pieces. So now it's just the process of, if you do go that route, edge wide receiver 4 and 10, you've got all the information you need, and you've put yourself in a position to make the right decision, even if 1, 2, 3 of those guys are off the board when you pick.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. To have those names come through the door, and like I said, it's I think a few of them, like you said, David, will probably could become Jets, and quite a few that haven't walked through the door will be Jets that that maybe in those early second round picks, there may be a person that they weren't expecting them to fall, and they kind of tumble to them at 35, and they go well. The film and everything lined up that we've done our research lines up, and yeah, we go for it. So no, it's interesting. Like I said, not a huge week of action. We're kind of, everything's quiet. It's quiet before the storm. And that's the way JD likes it. Obviously, we get into all this nonsense about the trading business, and we'll see when that happens. I've kind of just calmed down a bit on that. Like I was like, it's imminent. I've got to be ready. I've got to say at the end of each podcast, like, I'm sure we're gonna hit record and there'll be a trade. Like, we'll see what happens. That's still obviously still on the table. I know they're probably still interested in it, but I don't think those teams are very interested at the moment. They're losing those great players. So I think we'll wrap it up for the news segment, and we'll head over to our build a draft segment. Okay, so for our Build a Draft segment, we have a board of 6 prospects over the first 6 picks that the Jets currently own. Obviously, they could be trading up and down, so this could change very much on draft night. But this is how we'll run the segment. If you on our YouTube video, I'll have this board up so you can actually see as well. If you want to go over there, you can kind of follow along with us. But we'll keep it very much also an audio podcast and explain things as well, without just making it too video centric. So you have the options there for you. Matt, you want to run the probability thing, the randomizer, to see who goes first on this snake draft?
So we are going in order. David has the first pick, then Matt, then Andres is coming in third. All
right, we'll do it this way. All right then. So to kick off the Builder Draft mock draft thing that we're doing. David, who are you taking? And I think we can all guess this easily. Who are you taking with the first pick?
Not even a question, not even a hesitation. It's Kayvon Thibodeau every single time. It's just he's a much better prospect than people are giving him credit for. And I did an edge roundup today on the Jets way and kind of looked at the in-depth numbers. And his kind of pass rush win rate is right up there with Aiden Hutchinson. His pass rush production rate, based on how often he actually rushed a passer, right up there with Aiden Hutchinson. He came second on both of those, but he's right there. He's a fantastic fit for our system. Explosion, speed off the edge. Love him as a prospect. Character concerns. I mean, he's got a few business interests. I don't care. He wants to be the best. Every time you see, he wants to be the best. There's a great, Andrew did a great job on Jets X Factor talking to Kayvon's personal trainer, and it kind of just allayed some fears. I think he's fine. I think he'd be an absolute home run steal of the draft.
Yeah,
Jets got him at 4.
I completely agree. He's the guy that I think consensus. I think everyone agrees within the Jets fan base that he's the guy that if he's there, you go with him and pretty happy. I should mention for audio listeners who is in the 6 players in the kind of to select for the 4th pick. I have left Aiden Hutchinson out because I think he goes 1, and if he doesn't, he goes 2. I don't see him falling behind beyond Detroit. So I've gone with KT, Jermaine Johnson, Sauce Gardner, Ike Ekwonu, Evan Neal, and Trayvon Walker are the 6 options for us to choose in the 4th pick slot. So Matt, with KT out the way, who are you going to be taking?
I think for me, coming in behind KT going, who'd be my first choice as well. I think it's a toss up between Ekwonu and Jermaine Johnson. So Ekwonu, you're kind of establishing that long-term depth at tackle. You kind of address the question marks of Becton and Fant's contract and what's going on there. With Jermaine Johnson, you get a slightly older but really polished, really pro-ready pass rusher, someone who can come in, dominate from day one, and I think you could still easily get a decade out of him. So it's a tough decision on that basis, and I think it's probably going to go either way. But for me today, I think based on wanting to win quickly, pass rush was still such a need for this team. So I will slide in Jermaine Johnson as my choice for the first round.
Right, and that's me in a bit of a pickle. Without him gone, So it's Jermaine Johnson is obviously another great talent at this part as well. I'm very much on board with if KT goes to the teams above us. Jermaine Johnson is the pick at 4. You get the position solved. Ekwonu is a great prospect, no doubt, but it's just not what we need right now, and so it's kind of I think you go with the need over that. So with me left with the 2 pass rushers gone. Well, there's Trayvon Walker. I personally won't go with Trayvon Walker and I'm going to go with someone with a bit more upside. Now, this is going to annoy you, Matt, because you're very much like if you're not going with a pass rusher, you got to go Ekwonu. I still believe in the ceiling of Mekhi Becton. I want to give him. Speaking to DJ last week, he said they're willing to both coaching staff and front office going to give him another year. I want to go with a player who's really going to raise the potential quality, even though Ekwonu would. I want a guy who's going to raise the quality even bigger in the room. That is Sauce Gardner. I love Sauce Gardner, and I'm going to take him. I have to take him there. I would have taken the pass rushers, but I'm going to take Sauce Gardner, and then you pair him across with Reed, and you've got Hall there. It's got great depth. You can play multiple corners. It's really going to solve that back end of the room, and you added one more safety there, and you've got a really good back end of the defense. So I'm going to go with Sauce Gardner for that one. So that's my. So I also now, because I picked last in the first round, I get to go first in the second round, which is obviously pick 10. So for this round, we have Garrett Wilson, and we have Carl Hamilton, we have Drake London, we have Jordan Davis, we have Charles Cross, and Derek Stingley Jr., who did pretty well at his pro day. So I get to choose first in this one. And the reason I've only put 2 wide receivers again is to create a bit of a narrative, because I think we'd all go receiver here. If I put, say, Jameson Williams, so I added, someone. I think David's going to be maybe stuck having to go elsewhere at receiver, which I think he's okay with. A lot better than I was at pass rusher, missing up pass rusher. So with this one, I'm going to go receiver. And obviously, Garrett Wilson and Drake London are really good. Both of them are really good prospects. I'm going to go with Drake London as the guy who can kind of give us something that we don't have, even though I really like Garrett Wilson. I like what Drake London does as well, and I think he offers something that we just don't have in our offense. We've been kind of drooling over DK Metcalf potentially, and I'm not saying he's DK Metcalf, but he's that kind of bigger body type who can kind of win contested catches, and I think we need that for Zach, especially that Corey's struggling with that role last year. So I'm going to slam that selection in, and we head back to Matt for the second pick of
Gonna
the
be
10th pick.
stuck in the middle here, getting the second choices, and this is interesting because this guy would have been my first choice. He's been my first choice at 10 since about January time, and it's Garrett Wilson. You've got the 4.3 speed, you've got the elite route running. You look at the cuts at the top of his route; it is so smooth and so crisp, and the way that he can kind of take defenders across the field in quite a lateral way that Matt LaFleur will love. It screams to me. I think he's got faster and faster, and kind of as he's played more in the Ohio State offense, and he just looks like a really natural fit to what we can do. I think he's almost getting discredited in the process for his contested catchability. I think there were plenty of times we saw at Ohio State where he went up and he came down with that thing. I appreciate he's not quite the basketball type player that Drake London is, but it's almost a skill of his which is getting overlooked. So I think for me, taking Jermaine Johnson and then Garrett Wilson, that is a very good first round.
I would be very happy with that as well. So no complaints for me on that one. Now, David, I know you in your mock draft that you released, you had us trading back from 10. So obviously that's something that can change. And some of the players, one of the players still remaining was kind of part of those picks later on that when you traded with the Saints in your mock draft. But who would you take if you're sticking at 10 and you have to take one of the 4 remaining guys? Obviously, maybe Jameson Williams comes into play in this situation, but he's not here for us to select. So who would you go with the remaining guys of Kyle Hamilton, Jordan Davis, Charles Cross, and Derek Stingley?
It's not an overly tough one, but that's only because there's no wide receivers there. I think if I was picking first, I would have gone with Matt Wilson. I do think he's the best player in the draft, and after that, I probably would go with Olave. I'm a massive Olave fan, so but no, the receivers are gone, so I'm going to go with Jordan Davis. Not an overly difficult pick. You look at Kyle Hamilton; he's kind of disappointed in the pre-draft process a little bit. He's not tested as well as you'd hope, and with some injury concerns and positional value, he was straight off the board. DSJ, I just do not think is a top 10 player. Despite the fact he ran really fast in shorts yesterday, I still don't think he's a very, I don't think he's an elite corner at this point. And Charles Cross, I still don't think you go offensive line this early in the draft. So that only leaves one man, and that's Jordan Davis, beast in the middle of that defense. I mean, we were a bit of a shambles defending the run last year. He occupies multiple blockers inside. He'd open things up for Quinnen Williams to offer more in the pass rush. He's an outstanding prospect. He's a high character guy. He's a high, he does need to be rotated. But Robert Saleh loves rotating his linemen, so I don't see that as an issue with us. For other teams that may be an issue. But no, I'm going Jordan Davis, and I'm pretty happy sorting that defensive line, getting Kayvon and Jordan Davis to kind of stop the run and get to the quarterback. So happy days.
That is some serious beef up front in terms of you pair that to Quinn and you pair that with Lawson and JFM. I mean, that is a ferocious line. That is a Salah line. It's great. It's great stuff. So you get the first pick of the round of with pick 35, David. So obviously it snakes back to you. So who are you going with with your first choice of the picks at 35? Which I should say, excuse me, I've got to obviously run through these ones. So in this one we've got Lewis Seen, we have Tyler Smith, we have Christian Watson, Nakobe Dean, we have Travis Jones, and Boye Mafe.
This is killing me. This one, this is killing me. Having Nakobe Dean there but I think I'll get Lynch if I've spent all first 3 picks on defensive players. So I'm going to have to go with Christian Watson. It hurts me because I love Dean so much, and I know Matt's going to be absolutely delighted to be able to get Dean in the middle because I know that's where you're going. But I think, because I couldn't get that receiver at 10, couldn't have the option of a receiver at 4, I'm going to take Christian Watson in the upside at 33. He's an incredibly talented player, physically as gifted an athlete as you could hope for. He's really risen up the draft boards in the pre-draft process, but he was outstanding in his game tape as well. So some people are picking him in the first. I don't know how comfortable I feel picking Christian Watson in the first, but at 33, that's where I'm going. I'm going to get my wide receiver in Christian Watson.
Yeah, I mean it's where you had to go. I mean there are going to be some receivers down the line, but the more you leave it going, you're not really going to fill that room with as much high end quality. So you got to get that done as quickly as possible. Matt, we probably know where you're going with this one, but so who are you going with your pick at 35?
Yeah, this is probably telegraphed. I would say that both of these Georgia defenders, Seen and Jacoby Dean, would be great value here because I think they're both first round talents and they both could go in the late teens, 20s. I think Lewis Seen might actually shock a lot of people with where he ends up going in the draft. But for me, I think Jacoby Dean at 35 is sensational value. I think if he's there, the Jets should run it in. There seems to be a difference in how the front office are treating linebacker v fans, but I think a talent like that, put him next to CJ Mosley, let him go sideline to sideline, plugging the gaps in the defensive line, coverage ability. Perhaps you wish he was slightly bigger, slightly stronger, but I don't think it's going to hold him back too much when he plays with his speed. And just another great guy. So yeah, you can't not pick Jacoby Dean here.
Yeah, it's a good choice. We all know a lot about Jacoby Dean, but I do think, like I said, him being here is great value, and I think it can happen. You're going through, you're seeing what people are mocking in there. The supposed pros mocks you're seeing when you do the mock draft. There is a lot of talk that he could drop. I'm saying it easily could go before us, but it's not impossible he's there. So he is the best value, but I think it's pretty realistic that there's a chance that he could be there. So with me, this next bet to me, I've got a double pick here. I'm looking at the options in this round. Obviously, look at the other ones, which I'll announce in a second. But I think with this one, I am going to go with Lewis Seen. I think that the quality is there at the position. I still need pass rusher, but I think I can get that at 38 with the option there. So I'm going to go with Lewis Seen. Like I said, I think he's just going to be a great complement to Whitehead, and it just adds to when you add Sauce and Seen in there with Whitehead and Reed. That's suddenly a very good back end. And again, you can never complain. I mean, especially if we're, especially if Lawson comes back, pass rushing is still a thing, but that's where we want to go ideally, and that's probably where we are going to go. But in my situation, I've got to try and make the best. And if you can shore up the back end, that's going to help the front guys get there. So you've got to work out one or the other if you can't get one or the other sorted out. So, I know Salah wants to go up front, but we're going to just get the defensive quality at the back in the pick 35 with Lewis Seen there. So with that being said, we go to pick 38, and the options at pick 38 are Arnold Ebikidi, George Pickens, Jaquan Brisker, Chad Muma, Abraham Lucas, and Perion Winfrey. So with that said, I'm going to go with Ebikidi to be the other pass rusher that we bring in. Obviously, you want to get it done early in the draft, but I think he's a very good prospect at the role, and I think it's decent value there at that point too. So pretty much, I'm pretty happy with that. David, any thoughts on having to, settle with the Ebikidi at this point with not being able to get a pass rusher?
I mean, yeah, Ibuki's a fine talent. He's a good pass rusher. He has some technical issues that he needs to work on, which are probably keeping him out of that first round.
Yeah.
I don't know how happy fans will be about waiting to the second round to get a pass rusher, but I mean, I wouldn't be too upset with Ebikidi.
Yeah, I mean, my mock is obviously going to be the least popular because I don't have JJ or KT at the top. So not going with that. It doesn't matter what I do with the rest of the draft. It's always going to be the third list. So as soon as Matt got that got that order in, and I was last. I thought, okay, well, the only shot I've got is that his crush on Aquanu saves me and he takes him, and I get JJ. But once he went JJ, I thought, yep, I'm going to get the lowest ranked draft out of the three of us. So it is what it is, and I think he's a good player, and I think he's going to add quality to the rotation. We've still got Cole Lawson, who we have very high prospects, and he's looking good, getting back in shape from the injury. So hopefully, and with that back end, that I've got quite a strong defensive backfield. Hopefully, that's going to still produce a big improvement in the defense. So Matt, where are we going at 38? So I went for the option. So Matt, where are we going at 38 for you?
So a couple of nice options here. I think Abraham Lucas could lock down that right-hand tackle spot if Fanton Becton battle on the left side. George Pickens all the upside, but I am going to go with someone who I think I'm probably a little bit higher on than a lot of Jets fans, and that's DeMarvin Leal, who I think in the second round is incredible, has an incredible ceiling if you take him at 38. I think he is kind of a natural fit in the free tech for the Jets defense, kind of playing
Leal's
that.
not here at 38, Matt.
Isn't he?
It's Winfrey.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I thought you said Leal was at 38.
No. Do we go through the options again? I can go through there. Yeah. So you got Pickens, Brisker, Muma, Lucas, and Winfrey.
Okay, but I'm going to go Lucas then.
The problem. Okay, I'll tell you what.
I was reading off the phone. I was reading off your messages from your.
No, it's fine. It is a good prospect to bring up. It is a good prospect to bring up because with Leo, he's a guy who's falling in between our picks at the top of the second and our pick at 69. So I kind of went with prospects who are a bit closer to either side of it, in terms of the realistic. But you can like. If
I was just looking at the number 8.
So you say overdraft.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, so
I was just looking at number 8.
You can mention Leo if you want. But
no, let's just.
Oh yeah, right. Gotcha,
I just saw number 8 and I was thinking. Yeah, you're right.
Would you still fancy Winfrey, or do you want to go elsewhere in terms of?
No, I'll take Abraham Lucas.
You'll take Abraham Lucas. Okay, so you want to explain why you like Abraham Lucas?
Are we cutting this from the recording, or are you going to make me look stupid?
Going to make you look stupid.
To
be fair, he was on the list. He was on the list that we sent around yesterday, and we changed it. So if you're looking at that list, it's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah,
and I just saw number 8.
Yeah, fair enough. But okay, so I'm here for your expertise on Abraham. We can all make mistakes on who's on a little board there. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But what's your opinion? Tell the listeners who don't know a bit more about Abraham Lucas.
Lucas, man, he's a really clean tackle prospect. He's got good footwork, good hand-eye coordination. I think he's someone who's grown into the role, and I think he's got a relatively high floor, which for a second-round tackle is kind of where you want to be hitting, someone who you can rely on. And I think the Jets still have these question marks at that tackle position, and we all hope Fant stays for another 5, 6, 7 years. We hope Becton can kind of stay on the field, play healthy, but I think Joe Douglas and Salah will be mindful of the what if at those positions, and what if one of those goes down and we're relying on an Adoga or a McDermott to come back. So I think you have to take Abraham Lucas here and make sure that you've got 3 really good tackles in the building, because we saw how important that was last season, having 3 tackles.
Yeah, absolutely. David, with the last pick of the picks at 38, who are you going with?
I don't think it's going to be too many surprises with Chad Muma. Just a tackle machine, sideline to sideline player, has a really good nose for the ball, gets good depth on his coverage drops. He's just all around. He's a good leader. He was that leader in the middle of that Wyoming defense, making sure everyone else got lined up okay. I still don't think our linebacker, as much as the beat like to say that the Jets are happy with their linebackers, I'm still not convinced that they're 100% happy with what they're getting from the production of their linebackers. I mean, CJ's not guaranteed to be here for that many more years. Quincy is he's a hot head of steam. He hits like a ton of bricks, but he's not very kind of patient in his gap recognition. He misses it quite a few. That was part of our issue with run defense, was that linebackers weren't hitting their gaps properly. So Chad Moon is just a really technically gifted player that's really reliable, and I think you can't underestimate how important a reliable linebacker is. and he can play as a will, but his future is as a middle linebacker. So you bring him in, you play him as a will, and then he could eventually replace CJ in that middle linebacker role. So that's improving your defense now and future proofing as well. So I'm going to go with Chad Muma, but I think Matt's pick of Abraham Lucas is a fantastic pick because Lucas is probably one of my favourite tackles in this whole draft. He's a big unit, really athletic, and he didn't allow a single sack last year. So if Matt hadn't have taken Lucas, that would have been a really tough choice between Lucas and Muma.
That's saying something with your love for Muma as well.
Exactly. But I really love Lucas, so I think that's a great pick.
And obviously, we all love Leo.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Leo as you are, but what we can do actually is Matt. Let's give you the case for why Leo should have been there at 38 instead of Winfrey in terms of the options. So kind of let people know that I think we know a bit more about Winfrey because of the Senior Bowl, but Leo, tell the listeners a bit more about him.
Oh, I've already chucked this speech out of my head that I'd prepared. I think Leo has the explosiveness in that free tech position to kind of, the way the Jets like to use their D linemen is kind of those first 2-3 steps you're trying to get as far up the field as you can. And Leo's explosiveness out of his stance, the way that he is able to combine his hands and his feet to kind of synergize his pass rushing moves and put them together is so impressive that I think the Jets would get a lot out of him in that free tech, particularly in the rotation as and when they needed him. He's extremely strong against the run defense. He kind of was Texas A&M's star man in their run defense, so kind of plugging that gap, which we know the Jets need. And I think on a team like the Jets, where they have so much rotation in their interior defensive line, even with Quinnen, John Franklin Myers, Sheldon Rankins, Solomon Thomas, I think adding someone like Leal is just going to give you another weapon to use in there. And I think Salah would love to get his hands on him.
Great. Another good prospect out there, just for the listeners to hear a bit more about who could be a pick in those 2 second round. Or if maybe we drop down a bit in the second and pick up some extra later round picks. David, you get the first choice of the picks at pick 69. The options are Brian Asamoah, Kobe Joseph, Donald Palm, Kingsley Enagbare, Cole Strange, and Jalen Torbett. So I think I know where you're going to go.
Sure, this is a really hard choice. This is a really, really hard choice, and I bet you didn't expect me to say that. And it's a hard choice between 2 players. I'm only tempted by 2 of these players. The other players, all fine prospects, but only 2 of these stand out to me as prospects for the Jets. And one of them's Cole Strange, who's been one of my favourite prospects throughout the entire draft process. But one of them's Kirby Joseph as well. I'm going to shock the world. I'm going to go Kirby Joseph. I'm going to go Kirby Joseph for my pick. And that's simply down to the fact I just can't stand to see another year of Ashton Davis getting considerable minutes for the Jets if and when LaMarcus Joyner goes down. So at the minute, we're penciled in Joyner. Well, I hope. ESPN have actually got Davis as the starter. I think it's Joyner and Whitehead that are penciled in as the starters. But Kirby Joseph is just he's just a ball attacking, free safety. He can line up a little bit all over the place, but he just got a nose for the ball. And we really lacked momentum shifting turnovers last year. And he had 5 interceptions this year. So, yeah, I feel bad not going Cole after talking him up for 5-6 months. But Kirby Joseph just makes the most sense for me in terms of who is going to improve the Jets straight away and for the next few years. And I think around about this selection is where you should be looking at a safety. So, yeah, I'm going to go Kirby Joseph. Sorry, Matt.
No.
Sorry. So, Matt, where are you going to go with this now with Joseph off the ball?
Well, I was facing a similar dilemma to David between going with interior offensive line or safety. But my interior offensive lineman would be Parham. I think he's kind of got the speed, the mobility, the upside to kind of sit and learn how to play the spread run zone offense. I think he's kind of got the mobility. We've spoken about it before on this podcast, but he's a former tight end. He's a former triple jumper. So I think he's a really nice option. Can play both guard spots and kind of sit in as that third choice guard in his first season and kind of be prepared to come in a pinch. The question over him, I guess, is long term. Considering you got AVT and Laken Tomlinson for 3 years, could he learn the centre position? Because I think something we've spoken about is Cole Strange is probably a more natural fit in kind of that spot. So I'm in a toss up between a better prospect or the flexibility that Cole offers. And I think in the third round you need to kind of get someone who can cover multiple spots. So I'm going to take Cole Strange here at 69.
Yeah. So I mean that's I think it's interesting pick. Yeah, I'm looking at my options now myself, and I'm thinking like where do I go for each position? It seems to be the board's flying away from me at each time. I think I will be going is adding a bit of speed at linebacker, and going with Asamoah in this one. With a thought to go elsewhere with my pick at the next pick. So, I think Brian Asamoah is a decent complement to what you could find, next to CJ. I think he covers the field quite well. In terms of having to get, like you said, linebacker David is not the maybe the position that they want. So at this pick, you're looking at this range. These players are probably the ones that are more likely to get taken off the board if you are to believe what the beat are saying.
Yeah. So I think this is more the range that we probably can expect. Part of the reason why I went Chad Muma in that zone. I mean, as much as I'd love to go Nakobe Dean, I just don't. And it is all based on what the beat are saying and how much intel they have on a organisation and a structure that is very secretive is anyone's guess. Maybe the Jets shock us all by trading down and taking Devin Lloyd. Who knows at the end of the day, but. Asamoah is a nice pick. Asamoah's got the athleticism that you kind of would expect to excel with Salah, kind of a Fred Warner type player. I didn't see a lot of him at Oklahoma. I'll be honest. I tend to not watch Oklahoma as a Texas fan. I don't really enjoy watching Oklahoma. So I haven't watched a massive amount of him, but I know of his speed. I know of his range. I know of his sideline ability, and that seems to fit.
Yeah, you put him under the wing of CJ as well, and with the teaching and the coaching that you've got in the coaching ranks as well, I think someone like that could really be a good pick at 69. I will go. So now I'm looking at the options I have. I've got decent options around the board. I think where I'm going to be going at this pick is going to be Zach Tom, who obviously David and Matt is celebrating, but I have to go with an offensive lineman. I think at this point he's really good value. He is where I would want to be taking the Mekhi Becton insurance, right? In terms of I don't want to be spending top draft pick, but I think he's a guy who could be really good and actually could be, if you let Fant go next year, you got a guy who could really do a decent job. I think at tackle, I mean, he held up really well against JJ. Jermaine Johnson, I mean, yeah, he may project to go centre or even a guard or centre, but I would say I would try him out and see what you got with him at tackle, because I thought with his technique and with his everything else he's got, even though the length isn't great, I think he give him a shot, and if it doesn't, you've got a good guy who's going to be a solid guy. David, I know you like Zach Tom, right?
Yeah, I'm a bit devastated there because that was kind of the one I was outlining to complete my roster because I haven't taken an offensive lineman so far. But yeah, Zach Tom is a fantastic, technically extremely polished prospect. I mean, athletically, he's probably not. That's what's keeping him out of kind of the second, third round range is kind of athletically he won't blow you away. He doesn't play with a massive amount of power, but what he does do is he's technically as gifted as they come. He plays with great leverage. He plays with great hand placement. He knows pass rushing. He resets well. He mirrors well. I think his future probably is inside.
Yeah.
But I've spoken to several people about it. No one said they'd hesitate to put him at tackle if they needed to. You wouldn't put him there to start your season as a left tackle or a right tackle. But say someone was missing 2-3 games in the middle of the year, you wouldn't hesitate to throw him out there because he's. I hate when people say this, but he's a football player. He will just do a job wherever you put him. You could probably put him a bloody linebacker and he'd still do a job. He's just one of those people that just knows the game.
Yeah.
I'm devastated of taking him because you kind of throw my whole draft board off now.
Well, I mean, come on, you threw me off from the first pick, and
who are the picks in this round? But you haven't gone through who's available. So who are you picking Zach Tom over?
But yes, in this round of 1-1-1, it's Zach Tom, as I've taken. But we also have Verone Mckinley, the safety out of Oregon. We have Fedarian Mathis, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. We have Romeo Doubs, the Nevada wide receiver. Myjai Sanders, the pass rusher from Cincinnati. And Troy Anderson, the linebacker from... Oh, the name's escaping me. David?
Montana State.
Montana State, that's it. So... Matt, with those remaining options, with me taking Zach Tom off the board, where are you going at this pick at 1-1-1?
So I think this is fairly straightforward for me. I was worried that you were going to take this player. I was trying to battle whether I'd take Dubs or Myjai Sanders as my second choice, but my pick at this round is going to be Verone McKinley, the third.
I had Lewis seen, so you should have known it wasn't happening, right?
I know, but until it's in.
Fair enough.
Can't count your chickens. This is someone who makes plays on the ball. He's got 11 career interceptions. 6 of them came in 2021. He's been an absolute menace at the back end of that Oregon defense. He's kind of not got prototypical size and length, but everything else kind of is there with him. He's got the speed, the agility. Kind of his footwork is nice. He's explosive. So I think he is the kind of piece that we can add to the back end of this Jets defense, and it will start looking a lot nicer. And I think just on the point around the safety class, it's such an interesting class with so many of these safeties perhaps being more natural, playing closer to the box and closer to the line of scrimmage. But after signing Jordan Whitehead, I think you really need someone with that range and those deep field skills in the safety room.
Absolutely. So, David, with the remaining options at your disposal, who do you want to pick to round out our Build a Draft segment?
I mean, this is a nightmare. I'm going to have to double dip somewhere.
Yeah.
My pick is actually I wouldn't go defensive tackle again, so I'm not going to go with Mathis. And Myjai Sanders, I just don't know where he would fit with us in terms of his frame, and
he's a 3-4 player, isn't he?
I just outside linebacker in a 3-4, absolutely fine. But for us, I just don't know where it is. So it comes down to Troy Anderson, who is a phenomenally gifted athlete, quarterback, running back, linebacker, playing wherever he'll do a job, or Romeo Doubs, who's an outstanding receiver. I'm going to go with Romeo Doubs. I'm just going to double dip with Romeo.
I think it's clever with you missing out on the first round wide receiver. Again,
That's
this is all unrealistic because I think unless there's something incredible happens, we're going to get one of a bunch of guys. We could even trade down and probably still get some receivers. But I think it's interesting if the Jets do decide, there's a great selection at 10. And then they have to try and trade up for a receiver, and they're not able to. Then it's maybe a good route to show what we could double up. We're doubling up with Watson and Dubs, right? Like that's funny. He's the guy that doubles up, but that might be a good pairing to really kind of infuse with two good players rather than that one maybe superstar player.
Yeah, and I think with the options available on the board, you have to go somewhere. And I love Troy Anderson. Troy Anderson's a great player, but for the Jets, for helping Zach Wilson, I wanted to get a tackle here. There's no tackles available. I wanted to get swing tackles. There's none available for me. So I'm going to go with Romeo Doubs. He was outstanding with Nevada with Carson Strong, and he's good with the ball in his hands. He can play inside and out. And obviously we had injuries last year. Elijah Moore went down last year. Corey Davis went down last year, so you do need depth there, and I'd rather count on someone like Romeo Doubs than Jeff Smith or one of the other guys. So
yeah,
as good as Denzel Mims looks and his hulked out workout photo that was doing the rounds on Twitter yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, even with Denzel, if he does come back into the fold and is a decent role player, you're still without Crowder, and you're still without like a Keelan Cole type, right? In terms of what we had last year. So even if Mims is a contributor as well, you add the two rookies that you just added, then that's a pretty decent room. And you've obviously people like Jeff Smith on the back end kind of helping out. So yeah, I think it's a good play to pick two receivers. I think we don't necessarily could go wrong if we do it in the draft. Even if we pick someone at 10, I think we maybe could come back at maybe a bit later on, maybe then get someone later on. But yeah, so that wraps up our kind of build a draft prospect. We're going to run through the teams quickly. So David kicked off, and his team is Kayvon Thibodeau, Jordan Davis, Christian Watson, Chad Muma, Kobe Joseph, and Romeo Doubs. Matt's team is Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, Kobe Dean, Abraham Lucas, Cole Strange, and Verone Mckinley. And Andrews's is Sauce Gardner, Drake London, Lewis Seen, Arnold Ibikidi, Brian Asamoah, and Zach Tom. So we'll be posting these on social media. We'll put a little kind of poll out there to see whose team you like. I think I know where this might be going, but at least for myself. But it's been good fun. So yeah, guys, we'll be trying to do more stuff like this, which makes our YouTube channel as a little bit more fun to the viewing experience as well. So come and subscribe on there, and we'll keep on trying to get more interesting content up there. We obviously are on social media at Jets UK Pod. And yeah, so we're kind of rolling towards the draft. We are almost there. And so we just have a few more weeks to go, and we'll be at the draft night and full of excitement. So David, is there anything you want to say to the listeners before we head off?
No, I don't think so. I was going to offer you a trade for Romeo Doubs and Zach Tom and a conditional future round pick, but I'm really looking forward to the draft.
Yeah,
it's going to be a great night. Having 2 first round picks is always exciting, and 2 early first round picks means, well, you probably still got to stay off the whole thing just in case we move back in. But yeah, it's really exciting times. We're almost going to see what the team is going to look like, and then we can start arguing about how many wins it's going to get. So I can't wait for that conversation for 4 months. Absolutely.
And you guys obviously David's work at the Jets Way. Keep on subscribe to that. He does great writing work. It's always a great read in the morning when it comes through. Matt, is there anything you want to say to listeners before you head off?
No, just thanks for listening. Enjoy it, and don't forget DeMarvin Leal at 38.
Right, that's if
you don't forget that.
I've really forgotten it.
That's a little mistake there. All right, guys. So yeah, enjoy the week, and we'll catch you next week.